I've been there, done that.
Hello, it's Nadine here, and I'm here with this week's episode of Life, Health, and the Universe. And today I'm joined by my guest, and I've done it again. I've forgotten to ask how to pronounce your surname before we hit record. So I'm going to guess, and then you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. Susan Salenger.
Absolutely right.
Brilliant. I do it nearly every time. It's a bit of a thing. So welcome, Susan. It's great to have you here. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you.
So Susan, you're an author and researcher of a book called Sidelined, and it's how women can navigate a broken healthcare system. So you released this book in April 2022, and obviously this is something that's very dear to your heart, this topic that's brought you to writing a book. So we're going to be here talking about all of the things that are in the book today. Let me tell you a little bit, tell our listeners a little bit about you. So you're, as I said, you're an author and researcher. You were born and grew up in Los Angeles, I believe.
Correct.
And you have had a long-running business with your husband, Salenger Films, that you had for 25 years. Have you finished that now?
Yes. Yeah. We both retired. We sold the business. Oh my goodness, Kitty.
Okay, hang on a sec. There we go. Sorry, I just had a thing that I needed to close on there. Something popped up. So you've got two daughters.
Right.
You have moved closer to them. Where are you living now with?
I live north of San Francisco, actually in the wine country.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Oh, it's
actually the only times I've been to America, that's the area that I've been to. So
it's just beautiful.
Yeah, stunning. And you've got 4 grandchildren. We are not going to exclude your pets who are joining us today. Cat is called Max, I believe.
Welcome, cat is Max. Who is climbing up and nuzzling my neck.
Ready for his dinner. And your dog, JD?
Right, JD Salenger.
Okay, JD Salenger. So, welcome. It's been a little bit hairy this morning, as I've mentioned, because I've got some renovations happening, and so I've been ducking in and out just before we hit record. So it's time to take a moment,
take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath,
right,
and align with the topic for today. So, welcome, Susan. Let me hand over to you. Tell us about yourself, a little bit about your book, and not too much though. Don't tell us all the things at once, and then we'll get stuck into the nuts and bolts.
Well, I'll just tell you a little bit. Really, you've sort of covered about me, but I certainly can tell you how I got into the book, because it took about 10 years to write.
Oh, wow.
But many years ago, when I was in my 20s and 30s, and now I'm in 81, so it was a hell of a long time ago, I agreed to have some surgery that I absolutely knew I didn't need. I had been taking some hormones for osteoporosis, and the doctor said, hey, I've got these new hormones. Let's try these. They're better for what you've got. So I said, sure. I mean, no problem. Then I started some vaginal bleeding and had some other symptoms. And he said, well, he did a bunch of tests, found nothing, and said, well, you need exploratory surgery. And I was positive that it was the new meds. I mean, it had to be. I was on the old meds. I was fine. I was on the new meds. I wasn't fine. Didn't feel that tricky to me. But anyway, he insisted, and I found myself, not only did I agree to have it, but I insisted it be done sooner rather than later. And so we did the surgery. There was nothing. I went back on the old meds. Excuse me, and kind of lived healthily ever after. But then I put that in the back of my mind. I was working, I had young kids, etc. So then many years later, after Fred and I sold our business, I was retired for maybe 2 or 3 seconds. That did not work for me at all. And I went back to school. My family said if I didn't go do something, they were going to kill me. I was driving everybody crazy. So I went to school and I took some anthropology classes, mostly because it was the only thing I could get into, believe it or not. And I loved it. I had never taken anthro as an undergraduate. And as for one of the classes, I did a project for whatever reason on women that had hysterectomies. I don't remember why I chose that topic, but I did. And much to my surprise, a few of them that had agreed to have that surgery, even though they didn't think they needed it. So that, of course,
Wow.
acted as a trigger for me. I mean, mine was fine, but theirs was irrevocable. I mean, it was a much different deal. But anyway, I began to wonder, how as women do we make our medical decisions? So that led me, I mean, it's truly a journey. That led me to interview maybe 50 or 60 more women, all of whom had different diseases. I mean, I did that on purpose because I wanted to see what behaviors they had in common. I wasn't as interested in the particular diseases, but I wanted to know how they behaved, whether they had anything in common, even though their diseases were totally different. And of course they did, and hence and then I thought, well, this needs a book. So that's really the journey of the book and the history of the book. And it was fascinating to interview the women and hear some of the commonalities. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and I feel like you've probably opened up a bit of a can of worms, didn't you, when you started digging in and interviewing women
I did it.
about this particular topic. I love that. I love. I've worked in the health and fitness industry for well, I don't know, 20 years or so, and
Yeah.
behavior is really the thing that human behavior is really the thing that like I'm fascinated by as well. And I've often said, like, if I went back to university, that's what I'd want to study.
Too. Me
Yeah,
too.
anthropology for sure. Like it must be
Oh, I
just
loved it. And medical
fascinating.
anthropology is
Yeah,
fabulous.
right, right. So this
Fabulous.
was kind of like an outcome of your studies.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Okay.
after I interviewed the women, some of the things which, we'll get into, but some of the things that I heard that really surprised me. So I did a lot of research because I mean, I had no way of knowing whether, because sometimes it can be just the particular women that you talk to.
Mm,
And I want to know if what they were saying was common, was it common and ordinary, or was it just, I don't know. So anyway, it turned out that everything they said, there's been a ton of research on. I mean, it really validated
mm.
everything I heard. It was great.
I know that the healthcare system in the US is different. You know, we all have differing healthcare
Right.
systems, but I feel like a lot of the things that you talk about in your book are probably quite relevant
I think so.
worldwide, especially in the Western world. We've
Right.
all got, you know, things that probably need to be fixed in the healthcare system.
Yes. Yes.
Do you feel like, I mean, this is, I don't know if we want to delve into this straight away, but it's popped into my head. Do you feel like it's an issue with a broken healthcare system, that some of the outcomes of these questions that are, or, you know, findings, or do you think it's more from the perspective of women's behavior within
I
today's
know exactly what
society?
you're asking. My answer is all of the above.
Yeah.
I think that women, I mean, I truly think, and I've actually started my second book.
Ah,
The healthcare system is broken, or
mm,
damaged anyway. Broken's a little marketing term. It's really not totally broken.
not totally
But anyway,
broken. Yeah.
yeah, right. But no, the women get the short end of the stick when it comes to health research, when it comes to healthcare in general. And I think that at the same time, simultaneous, nobody's ever asked me this before, and I'm putting it together as I speak,
Mm,
but I think at the same time, women have some um, tendencies to do things that also put them at a disadvantage. For example, I mean, I didn't in this particular book, in the first book, it's not true of the second, but in the first book, I didn't do too much about what the doctors or the healthcare system does, because in reality, as an individual patient, you can't control that.
mm,
You can only control your own behavior. So, and one of the things that women do, for example, the first thing I found that really surprised me is that women put themselves last, and
mm.
I don't do that. So I was really shocked. And I thought, no, that can't be. And that was one of the things I researched. And much to my surprise, I'm the one that's different. I was dead wrong. But there really was a study done in Canada, which shocked the hell out of me, to be honest. Several women, it was a small study, but several women thought they were having a heart attack. And one woman, who, by talk about putting yourself last, none of them went right to the hospital. One woman laid in bed all night worrying that she was having a heart attack, but her husband had worked so hard, she knew he needed to sleep. Another woman drove herself to the hospital finally. I mean, nobody told anybody that they were having these problems, these symptoms, which I would have, of course, screamed at the top of my lungs and called, in our country, 911
Yeah,
immediately.
yeah.
But that kind of thing really surprised me.
Yeah,
Um,
I think there's a few things in your book where yeah, you just go, really? Is that
I know that, me
really
too.
happened? It
Yeah.
just is astounding. I have to ask, because I know that you said that your experience when you were you were recommended surgery back when you were in your 20s, 30s, like that's quite a long time ago.
Right.
You must have seen massive changes in the healthcare system within that time, or even I wonder whether like people's relationships with their doctors is different. The pressure on the healthcare system is different. Like there is more prevalence of lifestyle related diseases. So the pressure on the system is huge compared to maybe, 40 or 50 years ago. Have you
Right.
noticed
Right.
that?
I think that, yes, I have. And I think that we've all come a long way. I think, first of all, that as women patients, we're certainly more, I hate the word proactive, but that's what I mean. We're certainly more proactive. We certainly speak up for ourselves. Um, and to a certain extent, I actually did. But in this particular case, the doctor kept pushing at me, and I thought he was right. He was looking for ovarian cancer. I mean, if he'd
Right.
been right, he would have saved my life.
Yeah.
If he wasn't right, and my point about myself in that story, which certainly relates to your question today, is I had plenty of options. I mean, I wasn't going to die within the next hour. I could have
Right.
gotten a second opinion. I could have gone back on the old meds for a week. I could have done a lot of things differently that I chose not to do. I was young and scared.
Mm.
Today, I think more women would be more likely to get that second opinion,
Do you?
go back on the old meds. I mean, I took a big risk. I mean, hospitals are rampant with other diseases. And you don't just fly in and fly out. As it happens, I got lucky and nothing happened and I was fine. But
Mm.
I do think that's changed. And I think for doctors, and I have not done research on this, but as I haven't researched doctors, but my sense is they're very worried about malpractice, and with good reason. At least in this country, some of the malpractice suits have had huge judgments.
Mm.
And so he probably wanted to be damn sure that he
Risk
didn't miss
averse.
anything.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I can understand that.
It really skews the whole thing, really, doesn't it? It just
Yes,
changes it
absolutely.
completely. It's like, well, I'm
Absolutely.
going to tell this person the abs like, because I've had these experiences before. Worst case scenario, but they don't say worst case scenario
Right, right. Well,
because they want to cover themselves.
well,
They can't
this is
afford
just
to not.
yeah, no, you're right. And this is just an anecdotal experience. This is not from research, but I've never had pain in my body ever. I mean, I'm just really one of the lucky ones. And I've had some rotator cuff issues. So I wasn't, and I exercise. So I didn't know if I'd done maybe I didn't know if it was bone cancer, if I pulled a muscle. I mean, I have no idea. So I did go to a arthritis guy it wasn't a rheumatologist, actually, an orthopedic guy. And they took an x-ray and they said, you have arthritis.
Uh-huh.
And we started talking. Said, well, do you want surgery? And I was just so taken aback because I mean, it hurts. I haven't even taken a Tylenol. In fact, I said, well, why don't I start with a Tylenol before I rush into surgery? But I mean, it was really, it was an immediate response. And I think that is I actually got angry. I mean, I kept it to myself and didn't start a problem. But, that was an inappropriate response on his part,
Yeah, yeah.
rushing
It's
into it.
yes, and it seems like often that yeah, we don't necessarily feel like we get given other
Right.
options, right?
Right. He gave me none.
It's
He
one
said, well,
person's opinion.
he said, well, we're surgeons. I mean, well, I'm thrilled for you, but what does that have to do with me, right? Your mother must be really happy, but I'm not.
Love it. Love it. So let's talk about that. One of the things that you talk about in your book is that we generally, as women, I don't know if it is the same for men, but from the women that you interviewed, we don't seek a second opinion. And this is one of the things that you advise that we do.
Right.
Because we may get a completely different perspective.
Yeah, and I actually not only advise it, if I had the means, I would insist on it. And let me tell you why. I think it's critical. First of all, I mean, gosh, where do I begin? There's 12 million patients every year are misdiagnosed. Misdiagnoses are
Wow.
one of the leading causes of death. Now, I don't know if that's true in Australia. It is true here. So that's the first thing. And I'll tell you why. It doesn't mean you're necessarily, I mean, you know, some doctors are incompetent, obviously, but it doesn't mean that. What it means is, number one, there's a perceptual bias. I mean, the same symptoms can look like a stomach problem to a gastroenterologist, stress to a psychologist, to a rheumatologist or an arthritis guy, it'll look like arthritis, you know, which it may or may not be, you know, you never know. So that's the first thing. You don't want to be treated for a disease that you don't have. That's a big mistake. And second, which I didn't realize until I did the research, there's maybe, and I'm being generous here, I guess, but 30 or 40,000 different diseases out there, many of which have similar symptoms. So, you know, we all think, well, we'll get a diagnosis and we'll go home. But for the doctor, it's not that easy. It can be like looking for a needle in a haystack. And women in particular, our diseases, because we get a lot of autoimmune diseases, and they're very difficult to diagnose. And their symptoms mimic each other. And there's not necessarily a lab test where you can say, oh, look, she has strep throat or she has whatever. So a diagnosis is not cut and dry. It's not black or white. It's very tricky. And I mean, I'm not saying if the doctor says you have a cold, go home and take an Excedrin or something that you need a second opinion. But I am saying if you're going to have surgery or if you're going to have radiation or any kind of chemotherapy, you want to be darn sure that you really have what you think you know, what's been diagnosed. It's so interesting to me because I did read when I did the research said that women hesitate to get second opinions more than men. Subsequently, I think it's turned out that both genders hesitate because it can be awkward. But on the other hand, I have been on a couple of shows with doctors, and they said that they actually like when their patients get a second opinion. First of all, they're not sure, and you don't want to they don't want to give somebody chemo who doesn't need it, obviously. And if the patient gets a second opinion and the diagnosis is confirmed, then the doctor has some backup if there is a malpractice suit. So it benefits the doctor too.
Sure. Yeah. I think it's definitely, well, I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like your book is really a comment on on so many things that are going on a, you know, in so many different contexts in society. And one is like being in a rush, wanting answers straight away and wanting solutions straight away. It's like we you know, we're on that go. And so if a woman does take time out of her busy day to go to the doctor finally, because she's found a, you know, gap, or in Australia, like you could be waiting 6 weeks sometimes for an appointment if it's not urgent, right?
Wow.
So you've made the time, you want the answer.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah? Of course.
And so getting a second opinion and going through all of that again.
Absolutely. I understand that.
So the doctors are under pressure to give the answer and then may misdiagnose.
Right. And I think that's why I do. It's totally inconvenient, but not only do we want an answer, but we want the relief that the answer provides.
Yes.
I mean, you know, honestly, when the man said I have arthritis, I was thrilled that I didn't have bone cancer. I mean, I didn't seriously think I did, but I didn't know. But, you know, I'm going to check it out. I'm still I'm not quite comfortable with the diagnosis because he was a bit of an idiot. And I don't want to take a chance. So I think, and it's, yes, I have the resources in the sense that we have Medicare here and I don't have to pay for it. It's inconvenient to go. I have to get there and I have to take a block out of my day, etc. But on the other hand, I don't want to leave a stone unturned when it comes to my health. I mean, it's a balance.
Yeah. And you've got an active life. You power lift, I believe.
Oh, I do.
I love it. So, you know, a little bit of a niggle in your shoulder
Yeah,
Whether
right.
it, as you said, rotator cuff, could be a case of doing some rehab and you'll be
Exactly.
good to go.
Exactly.
You don't need to have
Right.
it chopped
Right.
up and no.
Right. No. You're right. Chopped up is a good way. That's how I felt. You know,
Well, I
just
think
put
that's
me in
what
the
happens a lot of the
yeah,
time. And probably it's really exciting for a surgeon to be able to chop people up and have a look
I'm
at what's
sure.
going
It must
on.
be
That's why they chose that profession.
some of it.
All right, let's have a chat about some of the things in some of the topics or some of the discoveries that you made in your book. One that really stood out for me is that, and I think like we need to pull ourselves together and like, I don't know what we need to do, but the women that you interviewed believe that their illness is a punishment for past behaviors.
Some did. What they
Amazing.
believed, let me clarify that. Some did believe that,
Oh,
absolutely. Others, but almost all of them believed that they had caused their illness in one form or another. And they blamed it on their inability to manage stress. The
huh,
woman you're referring to, and there was a couple of them, blamed it on their what they had done as children, and they had hurt this one or that one, and they were being punished.
my goodness.
It was what surprised me the most out of all of the interviews I did, out of
Yeah.
all of the commonalities I found, was the amount of shame that women felt. And it was stress was the most likely culprit. Most of them blamed, not all of them, but most of them blamed their illness on their inability to manage their stress. So if you take that a little further, what that translates into is that if I think I'm sick because I'm stressed, and then so now when I tell people I'm sick, right, I'm advertising to the world that I can't manage my
Can't cope.
stress,
Yeah.
I can't handle my own life. So
Mm,
that, to go one step further, it translates into a total embarrassment. I won't tell anybody I'm sick because I don't want them to think I'm such a jerk that I can't even handle my own life. So now I'm sick, I'm blaming myself, and I've denied myself any support because I haven't told anybody that I'm sick and allowed them to do whatever
nope.
people do to
Yeah.
support each other. I mean, we put together a couple of focus groups, and
Yeah.
in the focus groups, I was really surprised because none of the women, or very few of them, had ever talked to anybody about their illness other
Wow.
than their doctor. So in this group, they were
Wow.
delighted to talk because, oh, I felt that. Oh, you felt that too, that kind of thing.
Wow.
Um,
Amazing.
mhm.
Yeah, we give ourselves a pretty hard time because we're pretty like women are pretty awesome. Right?
Exactly. And we don't cut ourselves a lot of slack.
We
We
don't
really,
cut ourselves a lot of slack. That's right.
and you've done a lot of coaching. Have you found that?
Yeah.
Have you seen that at all?
Yeah, like we can be pretty self-deprecating, we can, yeah,
Yeah.
talk ourselves down a fair bit. I'm not good
Yeah.
enough. Yeah, yeah. I was better at this last week. I mean, you've got the whole hormonal cycle, the monthly cycle that's
Right.
added to
Right.
that as well for
Right.
a lot of women who are
Yeah.
still, in those in that part of their life.
Right.
So yeah, there's that kind of like I should be able to do more than this. I could do more than this. Yeah, there's just the negative self-talk is one of the things that
Yes,
I really
exactly.
notice. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
It was
Um,
really
what was the age group of the women that you interviewed? And you had some
I did
individuals.
all over. Some
Okay,
I would let me be more specific, 40 to 70. There
okay.
weren't too many. There was a couple of younger ones. I mean, one or two were in their 30s or 20s, maybe. I'm trying
Mm,
to remember. But basically it was what I call midlife. Um,
yes. And I like that you call midlife up to 70 because a lot of people say it's all over by the time you're 45.
well, don't forget I'm 81. So to me, 70, you're
Oh
just a
yeah,
spring.
you've only just started going.
It depends from where you're looking. Let's
Yeah,
put it down.
totally, totally. I love that. Um, so did you say that they had all had some kind of disease or illness that they were managing
Yeah,
the interviews were based on. So you didn't have any kind of like, well, I would consider when you went, you were not sick, right? You had
right.
you were
Oh,
taking
I
a
see.
medication for your bone density.
Right, right. No, I was not sick. And
So did you
somebody,
have anyone in that kind of category where they were just kind of going in for
I'm
maintenance?
trying to remember. Yes and no, because a lot of them had autoimmune diseases,
Oh, right.
which is episodic. It comes and
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah.
So it would depend on the day that I interviewed them. So
Mm,
I'd have to say, yes, some didn't feel sick at that particular time,
sure.
and others did.
Yeah. Another one of the things that I thought was really interesting was that when women go to the doctor or healthcare provider, they talk about how how they're feeling makes them feel emotionally as well. And
Mhm.
so I think I read in the book that the doctor can kind of take that as overreacting. Yeah.
Mm, that's
I thought
exactly
that
right.
was really interesting
Well, I
because we
think
are quite connected to our emotions generally, but like to be seen as like over emotional when it comes to your health is kind of
right, right.
makes
Well,
you doubt yourself,
yeah,
right?
no, yeah, and I'm doing the second book. I'm doing a lot of it's on medical gaslighting, and I'm talking about the structural reasons for gaslighting. But women are really not viewed as accurate reporters of their own symptoms.
Yeah.
Uh, when we go in and we're in a lot of pain and we go to emergency, that's obviously in this country, but nevertheless, we're not necessarily believed, or a lot of women, many more women than men, are sent home with antidepressants. I don't know if that's true in Australia,
Wow.
but I would suspect it
Yeah.
is. I think.
Yeah. I definitely know more than a handful of women who've been offered antidepressants when they've gone to the doctors.
Right. I want to
Um,
interrupt. Let me say something really important, because I've been reading about heart attacks for this
okay.
second book. And a lot of times, this is so important, but a lot of times when women think they're having a heart attack, they go to emergency or wherever they go, and the doctor says, no, 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 you're just depressed, you're just anxious.
Oh,
And I think it's really important, and I guess you can do this in Australia. You really need to request an electrocardiogram.
sure.
The only way to know whether or not you're having a heart attack is through an EKG. There are blood tests, but the EKG is much faster. If you think the doctor's wrong, you really must speak up, because
Mm,
otherwise you could die. Time is
yeah.
of the essence when you're having a heart attack. And I didn't mean to interrupt, but once
No,
we
no,
get
no,
on.
no, no. That's definitely important. On the flip side of that, when women go to when women go to the doctors or they think that they're unwell, they express emotionally, which can be lead to misdiagnosis or fobbing off, I guess. But when they do have illness and they've been treated for it, they take the opposite approach when they're in recovery,
Right.
right?
Well, not quite. What happens is, when women go into the doctor before they've been diagnosed, they tell and I'm as guilty of this as anybody. I tell the doctor everything, how I feel about it, what hurts, what doesn't hurt. I mean, I've talked about my rotator cuff, but it's interfering with my exercise, and it's on my left arm, and I'm left-handed. I mean, all kinds of stuff. And it didn't in this case, but that can lead easily to a psychological diagnosis. In fact, and this has happened to me, where I've related so much about what I feel that the physical symptoms are actually forgotten, you know. And of course I'm upset and depressed. My damn arm hurts. I mean,
Yeah.
if I felt great, I wouldn't be there, right? I mean, it seems obvious to me. So that's the first thing. But what I did find out is, once the women got the diagnosis, they didn't, particularly with the hysterectomy women, although that's a terrible label to put on them, but the women who underwent a hysterectomy, they didn't ask what the recovery would be like. So they went, one woman asked, like she said, 35 questions, literally technical questions about the surgery. She said she probably could have performed it herself, but she never anticipated or asked about any emotional repercussions. So
Ah,
what happened to several of them, because they hadn't asked, and the doctor didn't say, which blew me away, because you're messing with your hormones. Of course, there's emotional repercussions. But so what happened is after the surgery, when they got particularly depressed, which is a typical response to hysterectomy surgery, they thought it was them. They said, one gal said to me, well, everybody's had a hysterectomy. Why am I carrying on? Well, you're carrying on because you had major surgery. Your hormones are completely screwed up. It was almost like another opportunity for them to feel badly about themselves. And that's what I meant in that section of the book. During
okay. Yep.
recovery, they did feel bad, but it was because they hadn't prepared themselves for it in the first place, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, right. I've got it. Yeah.
Incidentally, I can't say that the doctor didn't tell them because I don't know, I wasn't there, but they didn't remember it or they didn't hear it. Let me put it to you that way. So
Mm,
they were really upset with themselves,
yeah.
because it is such a common surgery.
Yeah. You know, that's while you were talking, it took me back to my experience with childbirth, because I ended up having to have two cesareans. One of them was an emergency cesarean. And I got induced and I was in hospital for hours on end, and there was being poked and prodded and, all of
Yep.
the things. And just before they were about to give me the cesarean, I cried, and
Of
they
course.
asked me why I was crying.
Oh my, okay.
What's wrong?
Oh, that's so, I feel terrible laughing, but that's
I
horrible.
know. And then you feel like a complete
Yes,
dick, pardon
of
my French,
course.
for,
No,
for
but you're
feeling
right.
it, right? It's like, well, why am I crying? I'm like, because I'm just about to have a baby.
That could have something to do with it, right? I
My
mean,
life's
oh
about to
my,
change
yeah.
significantly forever.
And you're about to have a cesarean or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my God.
Is it because
I
they
know.
see so much of it? Like that they just
I
get
think so.
numbed to the.
And I think that, like all of us, some people are emotionally insensitive and some are much better than others about stuff like that.
Oh
Oh
dear.
my goodness gracious. I mean, I
What's
might have
wrong?
laughed through my tears if I, like, what do you mean? What part confuses you, right?
That's it. Oh dear. Yeah, that took me right back. So I've been there. Uh, okay, you talked about the women being diagnosed or given medications for depression. You in your book, you also talk about the fact that women are targeted by drug companies more than men, and prescribed more medications than men. Is
Yeah.
that specifically like antidepressant medications or just in general?
It's two reasons. One, because we have more diseases and we have more like autoimmune type
Oh, right.
diseases.
Yeah,
So we get more medication.
got it.
And yes, a lot of it is antidepressant medication
Mm.
as well. Um,
But the
and it's
marketing is uh,
yes.
directed at women.
Well,
I don't.
I think it's just here in the States.
Yeah.
Although wait a minute, I think it was a Canadian study, and
Okay.
nevertheless, women make 80% of all the medical purchasing decisions. We're the medical gatekeepers of the family.
Yeah.
So all of the ads are directed towards women because we're the ones that decide whether or not to buy the drug. So there's a good reason for it. And incidentally, and New Zealand and the United States are the only two countries in the world where drugs are marketed to
Yeah,
consumers.
that's what I was going to say. Like, is that prescription medication? And they're still
Yes,
kind of like, if you're gonna be prescribed one, this is the one that you
right.
want.
Yeah, no, and it's fabulously. I mean, really, drugs that are advertised sell 9 times more than drugs that aren't. So it's a
Wow.
very successful
Campaign.
procedure technique. I don't know what to call it.
Yeah, right. Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? Um, I'm just looking through my notes. I've got lots of notes.
Well, and
Blah, blah, blah.
but next time you look at a drug commercial, you'll notice that most of them, some of them will have couples, but many of them have women. There's almost always a woman, not necessarily for prostate stuff, but otherwise,
Yeah, how do they look? Like, do they look like
Well,
excited and
well,
happy and
they look like, yeah, well, that's after they take that. They'll look like hell. And then all of a sudden they'll take the med, and right before my eyes, they bloom and blossom.
transform? Ah. Women are concerned about offending their doctors by questioning their diagnosis.
Mhm. That
Wow.
goes into the second opinion. I had one
Yes.
woman, really, this was interesting. One gal said to me that she would never get a second opinion. Number one, she didn't want to hurt her doctor's feelings, but she also didn't want to be known as a difficult patient. And she
Mm.
was afraid they would put something down in her record that would follow her, within her medical, it would be in her medical history for no matter for the rest of her life. So she said she would never ever ask for a second opinion.
Wow.
Not a good practice.
No, and I can totally understand it from a point of view of like being, as I mentioned before, being time poor and having to go through the whole rigmarole of getting an appointment, finding the time to go,
Oh,
that all of that
horrible.
stuff,
Right.
like that would be a
And
like
don't
getting a
leave out
second
that you're
opinion would be.
probably pretty, yeah, and don't leave out that you're sick and you don't feel
Mm,
good, and now you have to go back to a different doctor and start all over
yeah.
again. I mean, I'm not in any way saying it's a piece of cake.
Mm,
But neither is going through chemo if you don't have cancer or whatever.
yes, right. Yeah, that's yeah. Did you have people that had happened to, like their
No, I
diagnosis had
did
been
not.
incorrect?
No, I
Okay.
did not.
Okay.
But I actually didn't, I interviewed some women with breast cancer, but basically I didn't interview cancer patients because it's a different
Mm,
kind of disease.
yeah.
It's fatal, and that puts a different slant on everything, or it
Yeah.
can be fatal. Most of the stuff I interviewed for can be painful,
Autoimmune.
can be depressing, but you don't die from it.
Yeah, yeah. And that
I didn't,
autoimmune stuff, as you said, like it can present as so many different things and often is stress related. And the women
right,
don't like talking about it because they're not stressed.
right, right, of course, of course. And they manage their stress perfectly.
Mm. Do you think it makes a difference whether a woman has a male or a female doctor?
One of my favorite questions. No, I
No.
do and I don't. There's just never a clear answer. For
Mm,
when I began my research, the jury was still out and it looked like it didn't matter. Now the newer research does say that women are better off with a woman doctor. But I
okay.
want to add a caveat to that because the most important thing, and this is also comes from my research, the most important thing is your relationship with your doctor.
Mm,
And if you like your doctor, I don't care about their gender, you will recover better. You will tell them everything will be better. Your treatment will be more appropriate. You'll feel more open talking. It just depends. But the thing also to know is that a woman doctor, the appointment with a woman doctor will be a little bit longer. They take more time with you because
mm,
they're more relationship
okay.
oriented. The research says, I'm not saying that. But so if you're on your lunch hour and you want to run in and run out, you're probably better off with a male doctor.
Okay.
If you want to stick around and talk a little bit and really have somebody get to know you, you might be better off with a female doctor. Now that I've said that, a second caveat is that I have both men and women doctors. And I have a male doctor that spends about an hour with me, which in the United States is totally unheard of. I don't know about Australia,
Oh,
but I
for
mean,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, all right, an hour. I mean, really. And I have a woman doctor who says, hi, how are you? I say fine, and we go on to the thing, and then I'm out of there in 10 or 15 minutes at the most. So it depends on the doctor too.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. I have to say over the years, I think I've had different experiences regardless of gender. And
Right.
in fact, sometimes I felt like female doctors are a bit more kind of straight down the line than the
They can
men.
be. Yeah, right. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. It just depends. So that, I mean, that was not a good answer, but it's the best I can do because it's the truth.
Yeah.
It really, you want somebody with whom you have a good relationship. Doesn't matter, whether they're black, white, man, woman, binary, whatever. I mean, I don't care. As long as you
Yeah.
like them and they like you,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. I think that's probably quite a big challenge for, well, certainly where I am in Australia, where it's difficult to get an appointment with the same doctor all the time.
Of course.
The good
Well,
ones
and
are booked
yeah,
out. And
listen, I'm in San Francisco. I have so many resources. I wouldn't
right,
know. I mean, I have a pick of thousands, or at
yeah,
least
yeah.
certainly hundreds,
But it sounds like you go to the same people. You've
Oh,
got that
absolutely.
relationship. Yeah,
I do.
yeah.
I do. Now, we do have Kaiser Permanente out here. Do you have that in us? I don't know if they're international or not.
No, I haven't heard of that.
That's like a subscription. You pay a certain amount
Oh,
every
okay.
year and you don't ever get a bill. You just pay whatever you pay at the
Oh,
beginning.
right. Yeah.
And
Okay.
they can end up with different doctors. That's one reason I don't go there, is because I don't want that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I want to choose who I want
So
to
it's
go
almost like a
to.
membership.
Yeah, well, it is exactly. Very
Yeah.
well said. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. What was I going to ask you? Do you feel like over the years you've changed your outlook on your, like, obviously you've written the book, but like when you look at your own personal behavior, when you have you talk about your relationships with your doctors, do you feel like you're more proactive when you're with
Yes.
your doctor, that you're working
Oh,
together
yes.
compared to how you used to be?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I feel now I have, because I think actually because of the research, that reminds me, I'll answer your question, then I want to say something. But yes, I have many more tools in my toolbox, if you'll pardon that overused metaphor.
Mm.
But I really do. I know now what to ask, and I know when somebody says, so you don't want surgery? No, you're right. I don't want surgery. I never would have said that before. I would have said, well, gee, do you think I need it? No, I don't need it. I know I don't need it. I'm not a doctor, but I know as I said, I haven't even taken a Tylenol. So I'm much more direct than I used to be.
Mm.
Forgot what I was going to say. I said I had something I wanted to say, and now I forgot it.
It will come back as soon as
It
you
will. It will. It will. It will.
What else was I going to ask you? Let's talk about the book in general. Like, so you published it in 2022. Had you
Right.
always wanted to be an author? Is this?
Well, I've always, no, I don't think I knew what I wanted to be. I love calling myself a late bloomer because that's what I am. But, when we were in business, I did write the scripts for the films.
Okay.
So I've always written, but I didn't call myself a writer. I thought I was a businesswoman, and I was actually a terrible businesswoman and a much better writer.
Much
Isn't
better
that funny?
writer.
But now when I went to UCLA and did the writing, they were so supportive of my writing. And I was thinking about getting a doctorate in anthro at the time. And one of the teachers said to me, why would you do that? Why don't you just go write? Why, you don't want to restrict yourself. You'll be writing a lot of papers that you don't want to write. And I thought, she's right. So that's kind of what got me started. But I am much more proactive. And I mean, I'm glad that you asked me that. My new mantra and is for everybody is truly, it's your body and it's your choice, and you better take care of it, because you got to listen to your guts. And let me add one more thing, which we haven't really gotten to. When you go to your doctor, and it doesn't matter what kind of a healthcare system you have, but you need to do a couple of things to focus the visit and make sure that it goes correctly or the way you want it to. Stop looking at me. That's my dog. The first
He
thing
wants his dinner.
He's just so cute. The first thing you want to do is write out a list. And I notice I said write out, don't memorize it. Because again, when I get so anxious, I forget it. So you really want to write down everything that all your symptoms, what are your questions, what's the family history, whatever that you think they need to know. And then once you get your diagnosis, you want to ask for the clinical name of it, so you can get some access to a computer and go research it. And I'll tell you about the research in a minute. But the third thing you want to do is repeat back what you heard the doctor say.
Okay.
And you want to do that for two reasons. First of all, 50% of women leave the office not understanding what they've been told. And you don't want to be in that half of the group. You need to know that you heard correctly, and you can only do that by repeating it back. And that gives the doctor a chance to confirm that, yes, you did hear correctly. And it also gives them a chance to make sure that they said what they meant to say. I mean, we all misspeak. So it's a really good double check. But the book is full of resources. The best part of the book is the back end of it, actually, because I've done all of your research for you. And I tell you, well, this is probably more for the States, come to think of it, because I've told you how to research your doctor, how to research your hospital, how to check your symptoms. That's international. We can all go to the Mayo Clinic or wherever and look it up. It's just really important, I guess, to feel, I know it's dinner time, to be in charge. And I think that's just so important. But I also think it's important to take charge of the doctor visit a little bit and make sure that your questions are answered.
Yeah. I think there's that and it's ingrained, I think, in us, and maybe it's changing, hopefully it's changing, that well, that the doctor's the professional and we're just the stupid like layperson, right? And so who are we to like know better? We're not and we're not taught or encouraged to trust our intuitive, like you knew, like when you said right back when you you know, had that operation, you knew you didn't need it.
I did.
And you didn't feel like you had the...
No, I didn't. And today I would have. But, you know, I did have somebody say that to me. Well, I'm not the doctor. I didn't go to medical school. And that's true. I mean, most of us didn't. But that doesn't mean you got, not only do you want to go with your gut, but you want to educate your gut. So you go to the resources, whatever you have, Mayo Clinic, as the one I use a lot, or Harvard. And I find out, gee, do my symptoms really match what this doctor said? And obviously most of the time they do, but not always. Something, and that way, when I go in, I can say, you know, when I go back, I can say, I did my research, and I know you've seen a lot of people with my symptoms, but are you sure that it's disease A? Have any of them had disease B? Does that make sense at all? I mean, there's ways you can phrase it.
Yeah, good tips. So you published your book in 2022, so nearly 2 years ago.
Right.
How's it going? Who like, where is it available, and like who's buying this book, and who do you want to buy this book? Like,
I think, you know, when I started out thinking it was just for people in midlife, but I'm wrong, because more and more young people, in fact, it's just been in our paper, are having heart problems. And now with COVID, a lot of people at any age. At this point, I'd say it's for mostly women, because it is definitely woman oriented, but anybody from 25 to 81, you know. I mean, why not? We all get sick, and if we're not sick now, we either will be, or we know somebody that is. And it gives you tools to manage your own health.
And also like a bit of a more awareness about what we might be doing, our own behavior, and how we might actually be.
And I think that's really important. I mean, if you're one of those women that blame yourself when you get sick, stop it. This is random, you know? That's how I feel. And I mean, and not that you can't cause your own illness, because of course you can. I mean, you know, but on the other hand, some people get COVID and some don't, and some drinkers get liver disease and some don't, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you know, certainly be careful. I'm not suggesting we all go run amok, but by the same token, it's not necessarily you.
When you wrote it, did you like, I get a sense from it that's, although you've taken this particular context, that this is kind of like a bit of a message for women on a much larger scale, like in today's society. Like we need to start taking care of ourselves, not just when we need healthcare, but like in general. And sort of like drawing women's attention to this is my take on it, and so I'm kind of curious as whether you do have that kind of underlying message as well. drawing women's attention to how we do behave sometimes and how that doesn't always serve us. And that can be like not just when it comes to our health, but just our lives in general. Do you have
Yes,
are you a,
that was not my message when I
okay.
began the book. But I have to admit that after I read it, I thought, gee, I had the same take on it. It's funny. People kept saying, I kept worrying that I wasn't going to find my voice. And apparently they said, don't worry, it'll come through. And it did, because nobody was more surprised than me.
Yeah.
But what I've learned, and I mean, that's it, we do need to take care of ourselves. And I should get this little tidbit in too, because really, particularly when it comes to medicine, first of all, as I said earlier, you've only got the one body, for goodness sakes, take care of it. But secondly, women research, there's so much less research money that goes to women's diseases. Most of them, not most, but a hell of a lot of it goes to men's diseases. And women researchers get less money than male researchers. Women researchers are published less often than male researchers. We know a lot less about women's bodies, which is why women are misdiagnosed 20 to 30% more than men are.
And I would expect that even like during our menstrual years, like with that cyclical change in our hormones each month, trying to do oh, your cat's looking at me.
I know.
So cute. Trying to do a study on a group of women who might be in different parts of their cycle and getting some, straight down the line results could be pretty difficult.
Right.
But we generally apply a lot of stuff to research that's been done on men. And treatment as well.
Oh, absolutely. No, a lot of the drugs, it's much better in the States now. It's much better because there's new rules that women have to be included, but we're still living with that unfortunate history.
Yeah.
And not only men, it's white men who are about 6 feet tall. And so if you're a Black woman who's 5 feet, you've got problems. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, years ago, I went for, I went for some test and I had to drink a bunch of gook. And they gave me like a big bottle of stuff, and they give everybody the same bottle. I'm 4'10", I weigh 100 pounds, and I'm getting the same bottle as somebody that plays football. I mean, are they crazy? I mean, I only drank like half of it. I mean, good God, I would have drowned. I mean, it's crazy. It makes no sense, but that is the result of women not being allowed in clinical trials and research not being done on women's bodies as much as it should be.
Yeah, so I think that your book really kind of can open our eyes to those kind of things as well, and just our behavior in general, as you said, when it comes to these sorts of things. We're getting close to the end. There's a couple of other things that I would love to hear you talk about. And it's one of the things that you talk about in your book, and you kind of touched on it, but we didn't get specific. And that was women, all of the things that they put before themselves. So in order of importance.
Oh, you liked that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I was just like, what the?
I know. It's so true. No, what you're talking about is there was a study done where researchers asked women to they gave them a list of 5 things to prioritize. What would they put first? What would they take care of first? Let me be specific. Well, the first thing they take care of is their children. The second thing, believe it or not, is their pets, that surprised me. The third thing is their elderly parents. And being an 81-year-old mother, I took a very dim view of that, let me tell you. I mean, I can see my daughter saying, hey, Mom, I'm sorry you're sick, but, Fida has to go to the vet, so you'll get better. Don't worry. I didn't like that. So first was their children. Second, pets. Third were elderly parents. Fourth was their significant other. And fifth was themselves.
Wow.
And I mean, as I wrote in the book, I think even the airplane tells you to put your own mask on before you put your kids' mask on. And, we are the caretakers. Women do 80% of the caretaking in the world. That's universal. And if you don't feel good, if you're feeling like crap, I don't understand you can't take care of other people. You're irritable, you have no energy, you're exhausted. I mean, so you have to it seems to me, to do a really good job of taking care of others, you have to take care of yourself first.
Yeah, definitely. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yes,
Amazing, yeah. I think
yes.
that's a really important message in your book, actually.
Well, and the women that laid there who thought they were having a heart attack, they could have killed themselves. You have
Yeah.
about, when you have a heart attack, you have
Then you
about
ain't
4
taking care of
hour.
anyone.
No, right, exactly. But you have a 4-hour window before you start doing real damage to your heart muscle.
Yeah,
So
I
the
bet.
woman that laid there all night, I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, I don't know the result, but
Wow. Okay, you've got 2 adult daughters and some grandchildren.
yes.
How has your book impacted them, do you think, and their approach, or has it not?
Oh, yeah, no, well, it did, but we've always been a proactive
Ah,
family.
yeah.
So they actually helped me with the book. I mean, they
Oh,
read
great.
it and read it. My
Yeah.
grandchildren, I think a little bit it did impact them. Well, they like having a grandmother that wrote a book too. I don't think they've read it,
Yeah. Oh no. Might
but
not be
I mean, God forbid,
up
but
their
they know
alley.
it. They're more interested in the fact that I'm powerlifting. They like that.
Yeah, I
That's
reckon
their.
that's pretty cool too. This is like
They,
life goals.
yeah, no, they think that's fabulous. So
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah.
What do they care about a book? I mean, they're teenage boys, and here she
Okay.
wrote a book for women,
Yeah, that's boring.
Yeah, right, exactly. Exactly. Very
um,
funny.
what about your daughters? Like, do they follow the advice from the book? Like you said, you're a
Yes,
pretty proactive family. So
yes,
yeah,
they
yeah,
do. They do.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So
Cool.
we are a proactive family. We really are.
And you
We all do.
mentioned that sorry to cut you off then.
Oh, that's okay. I was just gonna
Um,
say we all research. That's all I was
yeah,
saying.
yeah, great. You mentioned that you've had interviews with a couple of doctors. I just wonder in
Yes.
general how it's been received by medical
Yeah, that's
profession.
so interesting. I mean, I was a little worried about it because my book is not anti-doctor. I
Mm,
don't feel it is at all. And my 2 brother-in-laws are doctors, both of
okay.
whom read it, said it was not. Because I mean, I am definitely pro-doctor. I'm
Mm,
pro-Western
mm,
medicine. I don't know much about Eastern, so that's why I'm saying Western.
sure.
But I am only interested in how women can take better care of themselves and get out of their own way. Particularly when it comes to their health. And
Yeah.
that is my interest, and that has not, so the doctors thought, oh, they really liked it. That's why they had me on the show.
Yeah, that's great, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it was great.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Because
really
in
good.
fact, when I got books on the shows, I was the first couple. I was worried. I thought, well, are they going to attack
Yeah,
me?
have you
Right. But not at all. On the contrary, they couldn't have been more supportive.
oh great. That's really good.
Yeah,
That's
no,
really
isn't that
great.
nice?
Yeah. I want to know a little bit about your powerlifting just
Oh,
before we go.
so excited to talk about it.
Because I think, you know what, you've mentioned that you're 81. You've
Yes.
just published a book. Like I love that, like we've talked about all of the things about the book and about your message, and how passionate you are about that. But I also love that you are 81, you are a power lifter, and you've like just written a book. You're not sort of going, oh well, that's it, I'm done, I've
Oh
retired,
gosh, no. Oh, no, no, no,
no.
never, never,
So
never.
I love that, because I think that we well, just society's view, as I mentioned, the
Yeah,
midlife being 45 and then it's game over
right.
kind of thing.
No,
We
absolutely.
can be quite blinkered, right, into,
Yeah.
well, that's it, I'm done.
And, I
But
have
you're
to say,
not.
no, I'm not. But being 81 is scary.
Right.
What changes, I will say this, and then we'll get into this. I love the powerlifting. But what changes is your perspective. I
Mm,
mean, so when you're 25 and you get a cold, you think, oh, hell, I have a cold. When you're 81, you think, oh my God, is it going to go to pneumonia? Is it COVID? Is it
okay.
really a cold?
Yeah.
I mean, so your perspective changes.
Mm,
But the best way to prepare for that is through exercise. I'm
yeah.
convinced. I mean, I've had good luck. I haven't been hit by a truck or whatever, and I've got good genes, but I've also worked at it. I mean, seriously, I started powerlifting or weightlifting, not really powerlifting, weightlifting in my 40s when they told me, well, I guess I was in my 30s because when they told me I had osteoporosis and I got scared, they actually said I'd be one of those women that would step off a curb and
Uh,
everything crumble. And I thought, not me, you know,
Not
so I
me.
did my research and I found
Love it.
out that resistance training is, you know, and I have a website. It's called grandma.gains.
Oh, we need to put that
GAINS.
into the I know this is
Oh,
about your
please
book,
do.
but can we put that
It's on TikTok
in the notes?
and grandma gains. And in case anybody doesn't know what gains mean, because I did not, it's like I'm gaining muscle. My grandchildren named it.
What's
And
it
I
called?
said, what the
Grandma
hell does
Gains?
that mean?
Is it with a Z?
Grandma gains.
Is it with a Z?
Is it with a what?
Z, the gains with a Z, GAINZ.
Oh, no, I don't know what that is. You lost me on
Oh,
that.
it's just a, funky spelling.
Oh, no. Oh, no. GAINS, grandma.gains. And apparently it's
Grandma.gains. How
gaining
cool.
muscle. Yeah, no, my
Okay,
kids said that was what I had to name it. So there it is.
that's
And I mean,
brilliant.
people really like it. It's fun. It is. I'm strong. I can't open my own applesauce, but I could probably bench press you. You know, it's like,
I love it.
well, I'm so
Brilliant.
little. I'm like this little old woman.
I
And
know.
here
Don't you love that when someone says, "Do you want me to carry your groceries?" and you're like, "No, I could carry you."
go. Yeah, would you like your bag light or heavy? They say, and I go, oh, heavy. You know?
Yeah, that's brilliant. So I love that is that yeah, that for the listeners, like part of the message is like life is to be lived.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, yeah. I mean, I'm going to be 81 anyway, right? I
Yeah.
can't change that. I can only control what I do with it. I mean, seriously. No matter what I do. In fact, it's funny because when I was thinking about the PhD in anthro, and everybody said, not everybody, a lot of people said, well, you know, it takes 7 years. By the time you get it, you're going to be whatever, but I'm going to be whatever anyway. So I might as well,
Might as well have fun
sure,
while you
sure,
yeah.
exactly.
Great.
So
I love that. Listen, it's we've pretty much hit the hour, and I know that Max and JD Salenger are getting hungry. So I'm gonna let's close for now, but I've really enjoyed our conversation. I knew I would. I'm really grateful for you being here, and yeah, good luck with this book and the next.
It's probably available on Amazon in Australia.
Great. Yeah,
okay.
I think it is. Yeah.
Great.
Fantastic.
Thank
yeah,
you
we're going to
so
put
much.
all of those.
Time.
Yeah, great. So did I. I'll put all of the links in the show notes so that people can access find your book. Yeah, we'll put the link to grandma.gains in there as well.
I know, it's so funny. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
really.
Susan. Take care.
Enjoyed it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.